Well, welcome. Thank you for joining today. I'm really happy. Are you all having a good time at ComSme Next? Because isn't it great? It's just such a great show. I love it so much because you really get a chance to connect with people. It's not super overwhelming. I don't leave here with a headache. I really get to talk with folks, and it's very, very entertaining. So we're going to click in here, and we're going to talk about evolving the meeting experience. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Karuana Gatimu. I've been with Microsoft for going on 13 years now. I run the Customer Advocacy Group that is responsible for community and events and technical skilling and all sorts of good things around user enablement. I have an awesome team, one of whom who is here in the back, Lori Popmeyer. She does all of the MVP community work for Microsoft 365 and Copilot. And, I always say I've crafted the best job at Microsoft because I get to hang out with fun people and do fun work. You can follow us here. Adoption@Microsoft.com is the site which I'm going to demonstrate today, and my team delivers. You can follow me on Twitter, but preferably on LinkedIn. I find myself there more than any other social media place lately, so that's where you can find me and stay up to date. People are pesky creatures, right? People are pesky creatures. And in any technology transformation that you're dealing with, the things that can have your project go offline, the things that can have your implementation be slow, is really not about the technology most of the time. When I still go deal with customers now, it's usually because something has gone awry, and they're asking me to come in and try to get it back on track. And I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, when I do that, the issue is around communication, executive messaging, lack of a sponsor, misunderstandings amongst team members. I'm more of an organizational psychologist than I am a technologist at this time. But I happen to love people, and so that's fine with me. The thing that we need to remember is the most powerful thing about this AI transformation is not the technology itself, it is all of you. It's how you approach it. It's how you allow it to impact and expand your career. It's the scenarios that you think of to transform, including meetings. If you happen to be in this section to see a sexy new demo or product announcement, you are in the wrong session. I am not going to do that today. I'm not going to do that today. I think some of that's next week and the week after. But what I am going to talk about is how you navigate delivering improvements in your organization with the people that you have to deal with and the tools that we have to help you do that. I really want people to think about this time, this era of AI as we keep describing it, as an opportunity primarily for you to better your own life and the lives of your family. I am the poster child for having community make my career, right? I have learned so much in the community. Everything I know, I learned in a community session someplace through self-study. I was never an MVP. I worked, of course, in a variety of different roles and partners as a customer and then inside Microsoft IT for a long time before coming to product engineering. But most of what I've done and the support I've had in my career that put me in this amazing position to have this fantastic team and gig is because of the community. And all of you are in the right place, right? This show is a fantastic example of community skilling and these types of initiatives that can help you. When we go talk to executives in your organization, or even SMB or what we call SMC, customers who have 10,000 seats or less, we're going to show them this slide. We're going to tell them that there is a journey with 3 distinct work streams to becoming AI-powered. And these phrases, these buzzwords, I encourage you to bring them into your vernacular because they're not going to go away, right? The era of AI, being an AI-powered organization, really applying and having AI capabilities change your business. Like, these are the phrases that you can use that will convince people you know what you're talking about, right? And you will, right? You will, because you'll be skilling in the community. There's a leadership journey, there's a human change journey, and there's a technical skilling journey. Now, often what happens is people zoom into the technical skilling journey and the bits and bytes and policies and governance that needs to be done, and that's all very important, but they forget about the first 2, right? I was at a conference recently at MIT leading a panel, which is a wonderful, wonderful place to be. But I turned to the audience of, there's people there, 800 people in the audience who'd all been hand-selected to be at that event. You couldn't just go, you had to apply and be accepted. It was a big deal. And I turned to all of them and I said, how many of you think you're a leader in the era of AI? And 3 people put their hand up, right? So we're all having a bit of imposter syndrome right now, right? These are the leading PhDs in the world, the startup leaders, the innovators, the people who have been actually in AI for a long time before it became part of the popular vernacular. And even they were like, maybe, right? We have to lean in, right? It doesn't matter. You'll see this hashtag on my feed, lead from every level. So if you run a small team, or if you run a large department, or you support somebody who does, you can lead from wherever you happen to be, as long as you're doing it on the foundation of what we call responsible AI principles. The RAI principles are both engineering methodologies inside Microsoft, but they're also an approach to how you implement AI in your organization, right? Weeding out bias, ensuring you have trusted service providers. I doubt very much that Microsoft will be the only AI service provider in your world. In the realities of IT, it's a multi-vendor experience, right? People are playing with ChatGPT. There's so many AI companies that are sprouting up. You'll have Microsoft. So you have to think about these responsible AI principles beyond the boundaries of the Microsoft ecosystem. And if I learned one major thing at that event at MIT was, oh my goodness, there's so many people and they're doing so many cool things, I have to pay attention to what else is going on. We have a website about responsible AI principles that you can get to, and also a bunch of documentation to help you bring those in to your meeting experience, to your collaboration experience, to the way you manage your tenant, right? You haven't seen all of the AI capabilities that are coming across Microsoft 365. You've seen a lot, but a lot more is coming, I can tell you that much. And many of the new features are going to impact directly your admin experience, right? Hoping to separate you from some of the drudgery of, reviewing logs and things of that nature. And certainly the security Copilot is an essential part of especially running a large tenant. So the technical skills are important, but the human change in the middle will definitely make or break your implementation. I really want people to understand this user journey. I finally got the slide I've been trying to build pretty much all of my career, and I got Microsoft to include it in all of the stuff, right? Because even inside Microsoft, we're so enamored with our new features that often we fail to talk about everything that's on adoption.microsoft.com and the user journey itself. This we created for the Copilot Early Adopter Program and for Copilot in particular. However, it applies to any technology that you're trying to implement. So imagine that you have a group of people who have been using Teams since the pandemic, right? Do they know how to turn on transcription? Do they know how to record something? Do they know how to pre-bake an agenda with Loop? Most of us are surrounded by a tremendous amount of technology every day that we don't use, right? How many of you actually program your coffee pot to go on before you get up every day? Okay, 2 of you, great. You guys are the advanced folks that get the gold star. I was kidding, I actually don't do that, right? But this is my point, right? We have all this technology. I can program my washer. I can get recipes on my, Wi-Fi enabled oven. I can do all this stuff. I don't do that, right? The same thing is true at work, right? You can't evolve an experience when people aren't using the foundational capabilities right. And that's because we haven't got through these initial phases very well. Every time you go to roll out something new to people, they're going to say, why do I need to care about this? Technology isn't their day job. It's ours. So we need to make that value proposition to them. We need to say, hey, this really matters because it's actually going to do these 4 things for you, right? And I would argue that we haven't even done that with the core of Teams. So as you think about this and the new Teams client, how many of you are using the new Teams client? Yes? Okay, that's what I want to see. The new Teams client gives you another bite at this adoption apple, getting people to do things in a best practice sort of way, in a way that works for them, both on their mobile device and in the organization. Because then you can understand, they will understand how they can use it, which means they'll understand how maybe we can use it as a team, which gets them on their journey to having what we call an aha moment. The most important thing to realize about AI and Copilot and Microsoft 365 is it is a personal experience. You are developing through the natural language interface a relationship with your Copilot. How I ask for a project summary or a meeting summary or questions in a meeting recap is going to be different from how my colleague will do it. And so I'm learning on my own, in my own terms, in my own words, and with my own prompts, how I can get that thing to do what I need, right? And the people who get frustrated with their Copilot implementation are because they're not connecting those dots. I had a gal who works inside Microsoft. She's in CSS. No one's teaching them. And she's like, well, Copilot doesn't really do anything for me in my job, right? And I'm like, oh, I've deeply failed. I'm deeply failing. But it was great. It was great to hear that. You want people to tell you where things aren't working. But the goal is to get folks to this aha moment. And then for all of you, I would like all of you to go past that, to how can you do more and what's next? And how can you leverage this technology for your career, right? How can you be that leader in AI in your organization that people go to when they don't understand what all this stuff is about, right? It's a tremendous opportunity. The other thing that we have to talk about at this point is the fundamentals of a trustworthy experience. I want to acknowledge that Microsoft has been in the news recently for not good things on this topic. But what that has done is given us an opportunity to continue to dive into evolving the way that we approach security and trust. Trust is the number one most important asset in the Microsoft ecosystem. And trust is what you have with people who come to you to understand what all this is about, right? I'm not a master or an expert necessarily of technology. I mean, I am, but that's not really what I do. What I really do is build relationships with people who feel comfortable to ask me a question, because there are no stupid questions, and who will listen to my guidance. That's trust. So when you think of it from a technology perspective, it's very, very important that you have healthy identity policies and management in your tenant, right? So it's time to go back and revisit the many, many M365 governance sessions I have given over time. And please do all the stuff I said 10 years ago. Right? Very, very important. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've been talking about governance for a really long time, like almost 20 years. And people love this session, and then they don't do the stuff. Okay, now you must do the things to govern your Microsoft 365 tenant appropriately, because that is the grounding for all of the information and answers that Copilot is going to give you. And if you aren't looking at access reports, access control reports, and other things, then you don't know who has access to what. Anybody here have a Delve disaster? When Delve turned on, we coined that term inside Microsoft. Yes, exactly. And Delve, sometimes people didn't know what the permissions were on sensitive content, and consequently, it became discoverable when it shouldn't have been. Copilot can do the same thing. So you need information architecture, but it all starts with identity. And it's very, very important that in your tenant, everybody has MFA, right? Two-factor authentication is not optional. It is absolutely required. You should have service accounts for accessing various things. You need to have separations of duties for folks who are global tenant admins and they're not using their day-to-day account. Is it more difficult? Yes, it is. Is it necessary? 100%. So when you start thinking about evolving the meeting experience and the Copilot implementation, start with your identity posture, okay? And we have so much technical guidance in our technical readiness guide that I'll show you in a minute. There's guidance on how to do all that. The next piece is policy. Most organizations, so if you're in a smaller organization, like in big organizations, there's a policy committee, right? And they write things and they publish things and all of that. But if you're in a mid-sized company, it's maybe you and a few other people in IT and maybe an HR manager, and that's kind of at the bottom of the list. But now more than ever, the governance policies that you have in your organization are important. And it's time to review them because it's those business policies that you automate in the Microsoft 365 tenant, right? If somebody is a contractor or a supplier in your organization, do they get a full account, or do you have a process like at Microsoft, you get a V-dash account, right? And that V-dash has different governance and policy controls and can only do certain things, right? How are you dealing with guests in your environment? That's very important, and it's time to review that. Making sure that you know where the authoritative content is, right? Having an an information architecture for your SharePoint sites and the content that you're publishing is really important. Now, Microsoft is about to get a whole lot better at helping you do that, right? Our knowledge management practice is evolving and evolving in the era of AI, and we'll have more to say about that later, and we'll help you do this, large or small company. But be thinking about it. In Microsoft, it's something called MSW. It's our primary intranet portal that's managed in SharePoint. Where's yours, right? You need to know these things. And of course, enforcing retention and deletion practices. Some people are digital hoarders. Stop it. Stop it. Do you need that memo about the baseball game that the two teams are going to have from 1998? Do you need that? Delete stuff, right? Delete stuff. Any lawyer will tell you that the worst thing you can do is keep the information you should have deleted before, right? So it's not just about retention to the appropriate legal and regulatory things that may govern your industry, but it's also about deletion. The last thing is, and this is where the evolution of the meeting experience comes in, is about building healthy habits in your user community, right? How many of you have sort of a champions community inside your organization? Okay, a few of you, excellent. You are the groups that are going to benefit the most and have the quickest time to value for any technology rollout, and we've got the data to prove it. And that was certainly true in the early adopter program for Copilot. The folks who didn't have an existing muscle of internal office hours and champions who aren't support staff to help people, like the buddy system, really struggled to help people get to that aha moment and get to new value. So even if you go back and think about training on fundamentals, how to have a successful teams meeting, which is where you have to start, you need those champions, okay? Clear and present practices, being in people's faces, conducting regular office hours, making sure that policies and guidance is easy to find, training in the flow of work. This stuff is not optional anymore, right? If we want to skill ourselves and the people around us, we need to do these things. I wanted to share with you some new research, and I'm going to switch from research and context into some details in a second. But this framing is really important. This is a new study that we compiled with 1,300 different organizations who've already done their Copilot rollout. And a fantastic woman inside of Microsoft, Susan Ettlinger, led this research. And of course, you can find all of the AI strategy roadmap stuff at the link below. But there are these 5 core drivers of AI readiness. And so I'd encourage you to do 2 things. Look at this through the lens of your organization, right? Do you have a clear business strategy for AI? How is it going to grow the top line of your business? One thing is really clear, that people start off with AI talking about efficiencies. Like, I'm going to have a more efficient meeting. I'm going to be able to cut this staff or that staff. But once they've been in it a while and they've had their own organizational aha moment, they start to talk about the proper talk track, which is how is it going to grow the top line of the business? How is it going to help me get to market faster, have more revenue? That's a conversation y'all want to be driving with people and thinking about it. You can go through all of this, and what I did was added to her already amazing slide the actions that need to be taken: identifying AI scenarios, securing and categorizing data, empowering users, creating learning culture, and managing AI at scale. Those are the tactical actions that, sometimes with these research papers, they give you great ideas and it's very high level, but they don't tell you what to do. I'm a project manager at heart. I'm always going to tell you what to go do, right? And you got to check these things off. So you can learn more about this, but understanding how this applies to you and your world is super important. And this is more data from that report that basically is the point I was just making. When people start, efficiency and cost focus, but as they mature with the value that they're getting from AI, they start to think about growth. And I really think that this is how leaders talk about it, right? So now I've been doing this AI thing for, I want to say 16 months. 16 months since they asked us and my team to start working on Copilot. And I didn't know any of this before 16 months ago. If I have one superpower, it's quickly learning, right? And it's being able to rationalize new technology to a set of users and business requirements. That's what I've always done. And so I think I'm also one of those people that now, like, first it's like, oh, it's going to save me time with meeting summaries and when I'm double booked and the recap and asking questions and clarifying terms. That's great. But what actually it means is that I can get new products like Loop or new capabilities that we're going to announce at Build to market quicker with faster adoption materials and what have you. So I, in my own journey, have gone through this process of communicating about it differently over time. Okay, so let's go from kind of that high level to thinking about, like, you know, what really needs to come next. The key is not the technology. I'm going to say it again. The key is in what it does for us. So in the meeting experience, the goal of the AI capabilities is to allow us to focus on each other. Like, I don't take notes anymore. I don't take action item lists anymore. I'm actually listening to the people I'm in the meeting with. And what has that allowed me to do? It's allowed me to slow down. Because one thing I learned from the pandemic, speed kills. If you're trying to build a trusted relationship, but you're going 1,000 miles an hour and you're distracted, you're not actually building a relationship with the people that you're in a room with or on a digital room with. So the important thing to focus on when you are talking to your users about the new Teams client, about how to do successful team meetings and how to use Copilot, is to help them understand that that's the goal. That's the goal. Not that you're going to have the new whiz-bang toy to play with. Like, that's awesome, but that's not the outcome. And I encourage all of us to change the narrative about this. Because the other thing to remember is people's experience with AI is created from sci-fi movies. How many times have I heard the word Skynet in the last 14 months, right? Quantum computing and Copilot will make Skynet, and then we're all going to die, right? And so it's funny because there's a grain of truth and fear in that, right? People are worried, and we have actual technology leaders talking about the risks, and risks do exist. There are bad actors who will use this technology for bad things, right? That's why us being who we are is important. So my point is that, you know, you have to overcome that fear when you're teaching this to people and when you're helping them with the meeting experience. Okay, I always like to put up this slide. This is the top 10 things to try with Copilot. Everybody should know how to do these top 10 things. And what is number one? Recap a meeting, right? And summarizing, you'll notice these action items. When you think about Copilot, Copilot can create, summarize, and help you understand. That's its goal. And you notice I didn't say find things for you, because that's what search does. Copilot helps you understand information. Tell me about Microsoft's current policy on vacation time. One of my favorite subjects. Notice I didn't ask about some work-related thing. And it'll tell me, it'll summarize the policy and give me the references of where I can go look at that document if I want to. It's helping me understand information versus search that was helping me find stuff. Okay, and that's an important differentiator. So create, summarize, understand. Those are the three things that Copilot will do for you, and these are the top 10 tasks to start with that everybody should have as a baseline of knowledge. Because these 10 tasks will get you to that aha moment, and then you're like, wow, wait a second. If this helped me make that RFP response that much faster, what if we did all customer meetings and had Copilot turned on so that we could summarize the notes and put it in a knowledge base, and then I could ask it, what are that customer's top 5 issues? Oh my God, that's an aha moment. And I'm reenacting that, but I've had that happen with people, like literally just like that, but more over the top. Because they're realizing, holy, baloney, that was bad. I don't have to write all that down. I don't have to hunt for all of that. I can have a system help me understand what the customer's actual pain points are, right? This is what transformation is about. Customer meetings are one of the most important, customer meetings and tech support calls are the two most important scenarios for transforming the meeting experience with Copilot. And if those don't apply in your particular world, think about student guidance, or think about delivering a class. I've been delivering these customer hub sessions. I have the transcript. I can now use it to create meeting notes or presentation slide notes so that I can teach other people how to give my session, right? So there's multiple uses for this recap. If you're in a regulated industry and they don't like you recording meetings, that is why now you can use Copilot with just the transcript, right? You do not have to record the meeting to have the transcript provide you with these capabilities, okay? And so that was an important thing that we did. Remember, this technology is 14 months old. Think about Teams in the first 14 months, right? And Lori and I were there, and it was pretty fun. Preview was pretty fun. First year was quite a ride. Second year, woo! And that's what you're going to get with Copilot. We're going to continue to mature, to bring more governance capabilities to it, to integrate it better across the different endpoints of SharePoint and List and Loop and all these things, and beyond in Copilot Studio, in Fabric, in Azure. Right? It's not going anywhere. So you start here, and then you think about those scenarios. Customer meetings, technical support meetings, courseware that you're teaching, these sorts of group activities where you ultimately want to create a knowledge base, because those recaps can then become a knowledge base. When you think about this, this is a very standard slide that you talk about the meeting experience from Microsoft, right? You guys have seen this before. But what I did was I updated it for the era of Copilot, right? So as I've mentioned, right, you collaborate and align on the agenda. That's the first best practice. I have a rule. No agenda, no attendance. No agenda, no attendance. If you don't respect my time enough to tell me what we're going to talk about, then I don't need to show up. Super simple. And now with Loop, we saw in that demonstration that it's so easy to collaborate on an agenda. Just take 2 minutes, put in an agenda. Connect on current issues. I'll take that. That's okay. It doesn't have to be a work of art, but you need to help me have context for our meeting. And now you can allow Copilot to summarize ongoing issues there. And one of the things I've seen people do inside Microsoft is they'll actually have Copilot summarize a draft document. So we're writing a strategy paper on our investment strategy for our services for our next fiscal year. So I wanted to talk to my boss about it. So I had Copilot summarize that document. Like to discuss the summary of this investment strategy. Here's the executive summary, right? So if he has time to read it, great. But if he doesn't, he can just look at that, and we can then have a conversation. Am I going in the right direction? Is it too much money in one segment? Like, what do I need to do? Now, during the meeting, okay? Now, this is based on the idea that, people know how to operate in a Teams meeting, right? And again, I would encourage you to assume that they do not. So as you roll out these new capabilities, also roll out your standard meeting best practices, right? How to configure the options. If you're a meeting organizer, have a co-organizer. If you complete the agenda, share a collaboration location, that sort of thing, right? Or whatever is appropriate for your organization. But then you turn on that transcript, right? Now you can have Microsoft Teams automatically record a meeting when it starts. I will tell you that I don't use that feature all the time, because then it also captures all the chitter chatter at the beginning, where I don't really want people to think they're being recorded. That beginning of the meeting time is not wasted time. Stop calling it that. That's time for social connection. That's time to invest in the relationships of the people that you work with. So it's not wasted time. So then we go through that. I'm like, okay, we're going to kick the meeting off. Click. I turn on, in my case, the recording. In yours, it might be just the transcription, right? And as you're going through that meeting, you can ask Copilot questions, right? We have so many acronyms at Microsoft, right? What is AMC, right? You can ask the meeting questions, and it will find those answers for you. And then, of course, if you're late, which is fine, stop apologizing for being a few minutes late to a meeting. It's perfectly fine. You're human. You can say, catch me up on the meeting, and it will catch you up on what's happened. And, of course, afterwards, you can use that recap. You can see the meeting recap. It'll find the action items for you, and all that stuff we used to have to do by hand, right? So these capabilities exist today. This isn't even the new stuff that's coming. You can do all this today. So I do encourage you, if you're going to have a segment of your user community have Copilot licenses, try to make them people who work together regularly. The quote, we don't actually say pilot anymore in the Copilot implementation. What we say is get a cohort of users who work together regularly together, and then make sure to onboard them at the same time. So having 2 people in sales and 2 people in customer service and 2 people in help desk and 2 people in the field doesn't actually work, because they don't learn together. Take all your executives, but be ready for the white glove service. Take your whole sales department. Take all your customer service agents, right? Get that cohort of people who actually work together regularly, so they can have that aha moment together. Because if Joy and I do a similar job, and she's like, oh, did you see you can do a prompt like this? It'll be relevant to me. And that's how people are really going to learn, right? We know that there is so much craft in our daily work, and that's why the scenarios matter. So your leaders are going to be like, what? What am I doing? Why are we doing this? And that's why we created the Microsoft Copilot Scenario Library. And I want to walk you through this because this experience is designed to be a live demo tool that you can use with your leadership or with other people as a training tool about how to successfully understand and select these scenarios to work on. So let me pop out of here and go over to our site. So this is adoption.microsoft.com. I encourage you to bookmark it, not just for the Copilot stuff, but for everything that we have over all the products that we support. There's Copilot, there's our adoption score, dynamics, lists, loop, mesh. I mean, we're constantly updating this as new features come out. But I'm going to go ahead over to the Copilot for Microsoft 365 Hub. This is what we call a microsite. This brings together content from Microsoft Learn, from sales, from docs, from our team, all in one place. New news announcements and everything. And we've recently published this new success kit that has all the materials that I've been showing you. There's a technical readiness guide, a user enablement guide, and an executive summary overview, plus a train the trainer guide, all in this success kit. So I highly encourage that you do that. But I want to show you the scenario library. And the scenario library here really comes from the feedback that leaders don't know where to apply AI. So you'll hear us talk about AI adoption. That's an organization using AI as a capability for business growth. User enablement is what you do with the people, right? We've separated those two terms. User enablement leads to user satisfaction. Adoption leads to lots of other things. So what you do is I'm going to hop in here into the marketing group for a second because I'm talking to a marketing leader, and I'm going to say, hey, here are some of the goals and challenges that we've seen across industry of being a marketing leader. And here are some of the scenarios that Copilot can help you with. Collecting product feedback, conducting research, creating a new offering, right? What's a marketing campaign, bill of materials, or launching a product? And what I like about this is it can also show you the actual KPIs that you're supposed to be measuring, right? How do you measure success of the investment in Copilot services, right? How Copilot can impact brand value and what roles are impacted. And then, more than that, say for instance I go into creating a new offering as a scenario. It will walk you through the actual tactical things you're supposed to do to evolve the way you do this work, right, in this particular scenario, and where to use it. And what's better than that is you can just download the PowerPoint slide and then edit it for your own organization, right? And so yes, you can do it online, which is great because then you can drive a whole conversation with the leader, but being able to just download that guide and then change it is great. I think I'm killing the conference Wi-Fi right now. Sorry folks. But oh, boom, there it is. Okay, give it to me. Pretty please. You can do it. You can do it. Just give it to me so I can show it to the lovely people. Okay, I'm just going to open that baby and let you see what this works, because this is obviously what you would do, right? Comes down read only, but it gives you these steps. So this now becomes some guidance that you can use, there we go, to help those people in that marketing department change the way they think about their scenario of work. And now you've got this framework, and you can build your own. And we will be allowing people to submit scenarios. We'll be building more scenarios for small and medium business. As these new IT Pro capabilities come online, we'll be sharing that as well, right? How is this going to make it easier for you to troubleshoot a Teams phone problem? How is it going to make it easier for you to troubleshoot, again, access requests or the current, state and health of the services and what have you? So we'll be giving you this information, and as I said, you can edit it for your own organization. And that's all available there in the scenario library on adoption.microsoft.com. So use that and tell us where we should do things differently so that we can ensure to be representing people's experience appropriately. Because at the end of the day, we have to figure out who's leading this AI transformation. I would say it's the IT pros of the world. We're the ones who are going to understand it, explain it to our leadership, and share with them what they should do differently, right? We have to own that. Just like we owned when SharePoint went to the cloud or when Office 365 was created, all of that good stuff. And so leading in the era of AI is a series that we have that focuses on these particular areas. Workforce transformation is a fancy term for make sure everybody understands how to use it in their job and how to really enable themselves for how their job is going to change. There's one thing that's absolutely true. Everybody's job will change over the next 3 years as this becomes available on a regular basis, just like it did with the cloud. And while I still know how to manage something on-prem, I don't do it very often. I don't even talk to customers who do it very often. So we all had to learn the cloud. I would assert that we all have to learn how to deal with this and how to tell our folks that you have to create user enablement specialists in your organization. We have a new course that's now available, user enablement and adoption for Copilot. And that is basically the whole new implementation framework that we just rewrote. And we'll be also launching more content there so you can become a user enablement specialist. And let me tell you, there's not enough of them in industry right now. They're highly in demand. I don't work at Microsoft because I can't find a job. I work at Microsoft because it's awesome, right? And so that ability to be in that hub between people and technology is a growth area. And there are many, many smart people, but I really want to highlight the work of Susan Etlinger and MJ DePalma, who alongside myself have articles up at that LEAI. I've also got articles, essays I wrote up there about how to create an AI governance council, an AI council in your organization, how to select an AI vendor. And that, I wrote that as Karuana, a businesswoman, not Karuana, a Microsoft employee. So it's a generically framed article about selecting AI vendors and what you should be looking for. And more articles are going to come. We also did an executive leadership series with people across a Microsoft partner space talking about how to think about AI as the business grows. And I think that's very valuable to understand some of that information. So those videos are included. But we just launched this page last week, and we have so much more to put on it. And you'll be able to subscribe to the newsletter and everything going forward, so you can be thinking about how are you leading in the era of AI. And I'll encourage you to share this with leaders in your organization, as well as the content that we have on adoption.microsoft.com. Remember, the technology is not what's important. It's the people and how we use it, right? And there's not enough of us talking about this. One of the reasons, like, I can do a swanky Copilot demo. Like, I know how to do that. But lots of people know how to do that. What people aren't talking about is this topic, right? And how you apply it to your career and how you realize that the foundational baseline for Microsoft 365 is a little shaky in a lot of people. They don't know how to save a file directly in Office to OneDrive. They don't know how to sync a SharePoint library to OneDrive so they can share it to that. They don't understand always what sharing links are all about, which is why you get links that you can't access the document. Happens every day in your organization, right? They don't understand meeting organizer options. They really don't know how to do a webinar, right? There's a lot of fundamental things that are important, which is why I believe that it's very important to be looking at Microsoft Viva as an enablement tool, because that tool has completely pivoted to enabling Copilot, but newsflash, it was great at enabling everything else. Use Viva Engage to create your community of practice. Use Viva Learning, and this is the baseline versions. I'm not even talking premium. Use Viva Engage to have the training capabilities there. Excuse me, Viva Learning. Viva Insights is important because, of course, that's where the dashboards are going to be, about how people are using the technology. So Microsoft Viva is now really repivoting itself as not only an employee engagement tool, but a user enablement set of tools. And in the success kit that I showed, there's a whole deck on that, right? And so you're going to hear a lot more about that. But it's really important because you can get a lot of that basically for free with your existing M365 subscription. If you want to go further, there are premium services, of course. We're a company that makes money, but so much now is being built into the standard services of the license that it can really, really help you, go further. There's a tremendous amount of great content at this show, as always. You can find out more about this and everything that we talk about across AI and the Microsoft ecosystem on our show Mondays at Microsoft. You can find that on LinkedIn, on our Microsoft community page on LinkedIn. Go follow that. We live stream there every other Monday morning just for a quick 30 minutes. But you can watch it on demand as well. It's myself and Heather Cook. And we try to we started the show honestly because we couldn't keep up with everything that was happening. And we figured if we can't keep up and we work here, then nobody else can either. So Mondays at Microsoft became a thing, and we talk about this and so much more. But make sure the number one thing that you do is you go talk to your peers, right? This is a team sport. We have to learn together. You need a buddy system inside your company as well as in the industry here. So many great people and MVPs and partners who are willing to help and answer your questions, and so are we from Microsoft. So, I really appreciate your attention and everything. And I think, what time am I supposed to end? Am I on time? Oh, good. That's great. I was hoping to end a little early because I wanted to do a little Q&A and see if anybody had any questions. But that's the end of the presentation, and we can take some questions from the audience for sure. Yay. Anybody have one? Hi. Yes. So we are then from there as a group not taking those manuals. Right. So we say, oh, go pick up the shirts for the demo or whatever else. Right. Okay. Well, if you don't have someone taking notes intentionally, they're not writing down, the shirts need to get taken out, they're not taking note of, someone is now accountable for this task. Who's supposed to do this? When are they supposed to get it by? So it's not recorded because we're not thinking about it, we're off on other cool stuff. And so it doesn't get into the transcription. This work that the project manager can't put into the WPS because the humans aren't being mindful. Right, exactly. That's a great, so that's a situation that happens in early use of Copilot. But now in meetings, what I hear people say all the time is, for Copilot, hey, Lori, are you going to go pick up those things for the show? And she says yes. Like, Lori agreed, and then the Copilot transcript says, Lori agreed to pick up the shirts for the show. The other thing is that if I'm hosting that meeting and I'm really accountable for that work, I'm going to go back and look at the action items and convert it into a planner or copy those into my master plan and put them there. I just don't have to write them down the first time. It doesn't mean, but that's the value of what the human brings to the table. The Copilot is just summarizing what's happening around you. The human is the one bringing the actual experience to the table to say, okay, these 5 action items are great, but if we do this pickup, we also have to do this shipping thing, and we didn't talk about that, right? So that's why it's a co-pilot and not a pilot, right? You need that human interaction, but it does at least mean I don't have to make the planner, write down all those things. The only thing I do now is go in and put in people's names, right? And then, of course, now using the new planner that we launched just recently, that shows up in To-Do, it shows up in your lists, it shows up everywhere, you get reminders, it basically stalks you on a regular, at least my planner stalks me on a regular basis for the things that I need to get done, and the same is true in project, right? Yeah, so it is a human change. There's a human change involved there. You have to say, listen, the transcript is on, so, hey, Copilot, make sure we capture that Lori's going to go pick up the T-shirts. That's all I have to do, right? Because it'll know which Lori, because it's that Lori in the meeting. And so we'll actually put her at mentioned identity in the recap. So it almost feels like this, in addition to the Copilot, this simplifying that, you have to exert effort to teach the human what the best practices are, so that it automates them. That's correct. And something, driving accountability for who's doing what is what we've always had to do. This is another tool to do that. I see a hand up there, urgently.
I would like to add to what you mentioned. So I don't know if anybody here has used speech-to-text dictation. Maybe not today, but in older versions where you would have to say, okay, comma, Jane, exclamation point.
Yes.
You, as a meeting organizer, maybe a good practice is to think along those lines, like you're the conductor or the MC of the meeting. So, okay, Jane mentioned that she would do the thing. Just making those little call-outs, it helps the people who are attending the meeting and flag to an action item. But to the point of Copilot being able to capture and track those sort of things, then you also are getting your user base incorporated to
And it also just helps drive human clarity. If I'm in a meeting with 60 people, which I'm often, and we need to be clear about who's doing what and what are the next steps. At the end of almost every Microsoft meeting, somebody says, okay, what are next steps? And that's intended to be, Sally, you do this, Bob, you do that, we have an open issue here, we don't know an answer there, we're going to make something up over here, right? It's more specific than that, but we have that portion of the meeting. And that is a good best practice as a meeting orchestrator or conductor, which is a great term. But you can also do it more informally. Like I'm not necessarily that formal when I'm doing a team meeting, right? I'm more informal, but Copilot picks it up anyway. But sometimes I will say, okay, Lori's going to go keep picking on Lori because she's in here. Lori doesn't want to pick up any more T-shirts because she's done that enough. But so Bob will go pick up the T-shirts, right? And I will say that just because I know it's going to get in the thing. And by the way, I'm a little absent-minded at this point in my life, right? I remember and I am present where I am in that moment, and when I go out that door, I'm thinking about something else. And so I don't remember that I asked Bob, not Lori, to go pick up those shirts. So I need that for myself. Selfishly, I call those things out so that I can remember what the heck is happening, because things are happening so fast and there's so much going on that my ability to remember everything is pretty challenged at this point. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Could be up-leveled. And proofing them and bringing humans to them. And I always caution people, okay, so most boards, change boards or large organizations, they will have somebody that's the secretary of the meeting, not as an administrative professional, but the actual secretary role, like on a board. Like I'm the secretary of my HOA, and I take notes, right? And so that job then becomes different. Now what I do is I proofread the notes, I ensure the accuracy of the context of the information, I ensure that the action items have been assigned appropriately, and I format them so they look beautiful, and then I send them out to everyone, which I can also ask Copilot to do. But yeah, so I encourage us to not think, oh, the job isn't needed, right? That's not what we're saying. We're saying the job is up-leveled, hence workforce transformation, right, for the people, yeah. Yes. Right, right. No, that's fine. Correct. Exactly. No, it's not your data. I don't own anything I have created for Microsoft. It's not mine. Oops, sorry about that. Let me turn that off for a second. That just trashed my voice. But yes, it isn't your personal data. If it is your personal data, it doesn't belong on the corporate server, right? You can have more than one OneDrive account. Do that. Sorry about that, audio person. Um, how many of you are using Copilot today? Okay. How many of you are happy with it? Okay. How many of you can do all the 10 things that I showed on that slide? Right. Okay, good. Well, you don't count. Mr. Teams expert, sorry. Yes, of course, so could I. That slide, I'm actually going to go back to it because it's really worth talking about those basics and making sure, because the thing that I tell people even inside Microsoft is until a few months ago, even I couldn't do all those things. I'm building the implementation framework for AI at scale, and I can't do all these 10 things. But that was my life. I didn't have time to learn it all. Now I can actually do all 10 things. So it's okay to not know how to do everything. We need to make that okay for our user community, right? But just encourage them to invest. If you take only one of these and you make sure that people go to Copilot Lab, then you will have done a good thing for their future skilling, right? Because the Copilot Lab is really that primary place where you can learn about prompts. I'm not necessarily a fan of the term prompt engineer. I also think that that's going to become a thing of the past very, very quickly as the natural language interface matures and as other interfaces come online. So I don't really think of it that way, but getting familiar with how to get what you need out of the system in front of you, right, as just a regular business user, is I think how we should really be thinking about it. And Copilot Labs is great for that. Please.
I love what you said about being a team sport because I was on Enterprise Connect, and like every week somebody has a very creative use of Copilot.
Right,
And
great.
so a lady was saying she has like a whole bunch of teams, she has broad scope of control, and everything. So she goes in and just asks Copilot, is there any conflict in this meeting?
Yeah.
Because, you know, some of the people, you know, like that spirited discussion. And if the answer is no, then she moves on and says, okay, that was fine. If there was, then she will then, you know, follow up and ask,
Right.
you know, what were the different points of view and what was unresolved.
Right.
And I thought, what a great idea. I would have never thought to do that. But that's why the champions and, you know, your recommendation, I think was bang on, is like find a cohort.
Yes.
Because they'll share these great ideas that are unique to your organization.
Right, that is so true. And the other thing too is how one manager, you said three things I want to call into question or highlight. The span of control. I am in hundreds and hundreds of teams and distribution groups and SharePoint sites, more than I will ever be able to keep up with until now, right? Until now. Remember, create, summarize, understand. Help me understand the 5 most controversial topics that happened this week. Boom. It's right there for me. Right? Summarize the last week of Jeff Teeper's communications to the team. Boom. Like, that's important. He's my skip level manager, president of this whole division, right? So thinking about things like that, when you have a large group of teams that you have difficulty keeping up in, that is super important. And also, because this is why I need to get ideas like that from people who have that similar problem. But if I was in the field, still dealing with customer engagements, my problems would be very different. And I need to have that cohort with those people who are other frontline workers, for example, who are dealing with things out in the field. That's a completely different situation using Copilot on your phone, right? You may have a custom application or Copilot for sales that's been extended where you can look up customer information. So it's very different scenarios. That's super important. Right? But don't let people shame you with their bright, fancy prompt. Because unless they can do these 10 things, they skipped a class. And missing information is a problem in technology, just like the missing information about the basics of Teams, right? And so if you don't know how to configure your meeting options when you're setting up a meeting for 50 people, then you skipped a class, right? And so, yeah, you can skip into this stuff, but really you do need to know if you're going to let anonymous people in to your very important 50-person meeting, right? And this is where I go back to that whole issue of identity and security and governance. Like, these fundamentals, especially given some of the bad state actors that are out there and some of the hackers that exist, and bad actors are around. We have to be more vigilant about the way that we deal with these things, especially in the era of AI. For sure. I still can't believe I'm standing here talking about AI. It's a little like, where's my transporter? I want that. Star Trek was my favorite show. Yes, ma'am.
I deployed Sales Copilot months ago to a small group of Salesforce power users.
Cool.
And they absolutely loved the summary of the email thread. That was a huge thing for them. Still have long ones. And the fact that it can just very quickly do that for them, that made them excited.
Yes.
And then drafting an email where they could also set the time for the meeting, the follow-up.
Right.
Love that. At first they're like, oh my God, are people doing things? It's not going to help us. And then I showed them scripts for things, and they're excited.
That's right, because you hit the very common pain points. You understood that user scenario enough to really help them. And you're illustrating something that's really important. Empathy for your user base. Empathy for the difficulties that they have. It's not their fault that the tech isn't working for them. They're busy, they're tired, they're frustrated, they have other priorities. They don't have time, we didn't train them well enough, like whatever it is. Everybody has a failed IT implementation in their history. They have trust issues with us and our tech. So the fact that you showed up with empathy, you just showed them two things. You didn't overwhelm them. Sometimes as IT people, we go too far in the weeds and we tell people too many things. Just show somebody two quick things and then come back again because you're building trust with that group.
They started exploring, because they're
That's
like,
right.
I can see value in this, it already saved me time.
You got them to their aha moment, and then it was like, how can we use it? And how can we do more? You took them through my slide. You just did it. Awesome! That's so exciting.
About things we can customize and stuff.
That's right. And extensibility is the final phase of the implementation framework, is expand and extend. And the extendability components will be, there's some that exist today, and there will be more. You will be thinking about how to govern and manage your own custom copilots in your environments and your own agents. That is coming. So get your fundamentals in order. Stay in the community. We have a community for Copilot, just like everything else. You'll find it on adoption.microsoft.com, and my team and I are always here to help. I really appreciate all of you. It's so fun to be able to go through this with all of you. And thanks for coming to my session. Thank you very much.